This screencast is designed to give you a brief overview of the proposed instructional framework for literacy and the website that will potentially hold all of the resources supporting literacy. When you get to the website, this is the home page and what it looks like when you first get there. We will start by looking at the framework itself, which is right over here off to the side, LPS Instructional Framework for Literacy. When this page opens up, you'll have this document. I'm going to open it up in a separate frame so you can see it. Here is what that document looks like. So the LPS Instructional Framework for Literacy really was created with the intention of connecting all of the dots between the resources that we have, the assessments that we have, the required components for each grade level, the recommended components for each grade level, the scope and sequence, and just kind of putting all the pieces together so we can see reading as a whole, but then also look specifically at the different components of literacy. So in this document, just to kind of get familiar with it, phonemic awareness is this column, then phonics, spelling, vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency. Now the 5 components of reading are phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency. We did add spelling because we feel like that was a key component of literacy instruction and really the application of the phonics skills. Then the rows going across, we have our common assessment tools, suggested supporting resources, instructional focus for kindergarten, first, second, and then we did lump 3rd through 5th together. And then down at the bottom, a scope and sequence. So within this document, if we start across with the Common Assessment tool, we are proposing that the Common Assessment used to diagnose phonemic awareness and phonics levels and figure out where our students are performing at would be the SIPS placement test. We did consider Lexia and iReady, but we felt like SIPS was more comprehensive and more specific as an initial placement test. Lexia and iReady will definitely give us progress monitoring updates and check-ins along the way. For spelling, we are suggesting that teachers use the spelling inventory in place of the spelling connections 50-word placement test. Spelling inventory is designed to be more diagnostic in nature. It breaks it down specifically by skill, which correlates nicely with our phonics pacing guide. Spelling inventory is also broken down for primary, elementary, and then intermediate. So you really can assess students on their skill level. We do have a correlation chart for whatever missing skills that the students are showing in spelling. There is a direct correlation to SIPS lessons that teachers can use just as supplemental to boost those students in those spelling skills. For vocabulary and comprehension, we already have district assessment set up with Lexia and iReady and then the district CSAs. So there was nothing additional for that. We felt that teachers could pull information and data from things that we are currently using. And then for fluency, we are proposing that each grade level in some capacity use reading A to Z benchmarks as fluency checks. We do have a common scoring guide, K5 rubric for consistency and grading. For supporting resources, we know that there are lots of different resources that teachers use. These are the ones we are suggesting, but other resources that you have obviously can fit into that. For vocabulary and comprehension, obviously those have a lot longer list, so we have created a link to a longer list. So for each grade level, when we have the instructional focus, we broke it down into some highly recommended practices and some non-negotiable practices. So regardless of what resource you use or do not use, these are the common practices we should see within a classroom. So for kindergarten, to really boost phonemic awareness, teachers should be using phoneme play. And I will show you here in a second, when you click on those links, it actually opens up a document that breaks it down specifically as to what those different components look like if teachers are not familiar with it. So for kindergarten, we have phoneme play. For phonics, phonics and decodable words with sight words. For spelling, guided spelling and segmentation. Then for vocabulary, comprehension and fluency, they're the same. Indirect and direct instruction for vocabulary. For comprehension, it should include a mini lesson, independent practice, conferring, and reflection. And then for fluency, the work should be on rate and words per minute, phrasing, and accuracy. So for example, if you click on guided spelling and segmentation, it will open up a document that looks like this. It gives the rationale behind the reason why research says that that should be a key component for that grade level. It gives a description of what that would look like in the classroom. This will help teachers who are not familiar with these components. And then it also down here at the bottom of the page will show where you can find that routine in SIPs. Again, we are not requiring that you use SIPs. We are just pointing out the fact that if you are unfamiliar or want a starting place or want a lesson with these components, you can find it in SIPs, and then it shows exactly at what lesson or what lesson ranges you can find these practices. So that's just a more in-depth explanation of our actual framework for literacy, and you can dig more into that depending on your grade level. But let's head back to the website so I can show you the rest of what the website has. So once you get back to the website's homepage, again, we just looked at the instructional framework for literacy. You have your resources by grade level. If you click on that, you actually can search by whatever grade you are interested in looking at. So first grade, for example, it has information in your scope and sequence. It has resources from Florida Center for Reading Research. It's where you'll have your high frequency words. And again, this will become a more comprehensive list as we continue to add things to it. If you head back to the home page, you can look specifically by the literacy component that you are wanting resources on. So phonics, for example, it gives you the same rationale that we found in the framework itself for those different areas. Again, it shows you where you can find it in SIPs. And then there's instructional videos and then more documents and resources to support that area. Then we have our RTI framework, and this is just a reminder of our response to intervention pyramid. We have a tab for administrators, and this is really for principals to be able to have a checklist. That way when they're going into classrooms, depending on what grade level they are observing, what it should look like for these different components, because obviously what it looks like in kindergarten is not going to be the same as fifth grade. So we wanted to make sure that we separated that and tied in those knee standards. On the assessment tab, all of our recommended common assessments are linked here. So that way it's just another place that you can access that. This district TAT form, some buildings call it SST. This is something that principals are actually working on within their admin team. So for this moment in time, you can go ahead and just skip over that, but principals are working on having a district TAT form that is more diagnostic and directly correlates with the literacy framework. That way, if a student is struggling in reading, teachers and the TAT team can be more specific in diagnosing what is going on with that student and having really strategic interventions to help that child make progress. We also have a professional development plan. This is just a draft, but we will have common PD that the coaches and principals provide for teachers throughout the year to build our capacity and understanding for the components of reading and the different pieces of the literacy framework. And then we also have linked research on where we pulled information from. If you were at our foundational reading meeting, these are the articles that we um, looked at in depth. So that is our literacy framework and website. Please feel free to contact me if you have any questions and let us know what you think. Thanks so much.